It's been approximately 1 month since I first planted and filled this little 5-gallon aquarium. Just for a quick recap, this 5-gallon tank was given to me for free, and I decided to make a low-tech, dirted experiment with no real plans. The sand, log, and even some of the water was gathered from a local lake a few minutes from my house, and the plants were free clippings, some of which I wasn't sure would even make it. If you haven't seen it already, I recommend checking out the first video I made about setting up the experiment. It's been a little over 2 weeks since the last video, and I've mostly been letting everything sit and grow. I have still done a little maintenance here and there, such as water testing and changing as needed, but parameters have stabilized and water changes already don't need to be done as often. Over the past 2 weeks, there has been a good increase in microfauna in the tank. I have found multiple different species in every corner. A good sign for the health of this little ecosystem experiment. Microscopic critters aren't the only things calling this home, however. While not sure if it came over from my plants or from something I took out of the lake, I have also found a few little snails in here. While I don't want an overabundance of them, a few snails are fine and they can stay in here. For now. Snails and microscopic things aren't the only living creatures in this little box either, though. I've also added a few shrimp that were pulled out of my other tanks. While I did lose a shrimp, the others are all doing well, and I found a couple of molts lying around, another good sign. But most likely the biggest update for this video is the other inhabitants that were added on a whim. I recently added 2 female and 1 male honey gourami into my community tank. And within only a couple months, they began breeding regularly. The male would make his bubble nest, which I'd then find filled with eggs that would hatch about a day later. I'm not actively trying to breed the fish, and was kind of just leaving things on their own. If baby fish survive in there, that's awesome. But I wasn't getting my hopes up for the survivors in the community tank with frogs. Then I had a brilliant idea. I scooped up the bubble nest one day, after some eggs were laid, and gently transferred it into the 5-gallon. With no predators and a buffet of live food growing in size, I thought, why not? It's an experiment after all. While honey gourami aren't the fish I envisioned living in this little setup, the fry can use it in the meantime. The eggs didn't take long to hatch, leaving a bunch of little fry hanging upside down on the surface of the water and under the floating plants. Usually they stay there for the first day or two, but some of them had already flipped over and started swimming freely. With their fins being translucent, they really do look like a bunch of little bubbles all over the tank. But I didn't just want to make the first update video into something mainly about gourami fry. So here's a shrimp again. And I also added in more shrimps. I don't know why. Laziness, probably. The other tank the culls go in is downstairs. But they're here now. And you'll notice I decided to add the orangey colored ones that I mentioned in the first video. All shrimps were taken from a 5-gallon of blue variety shrimps, which sits next to this one. I may upgrade the blue shrimps and my new celestial pearl danios into a 10-gallon that I made myself in the near future. Let me know in the comments if this is something you'd be interested in seeing a video of. Same as last time, I slowly dripped in water over a 30-minute time span using a syringe, then added them in. Among the shrimp added this time was this female buried with eggs. She's an interesting greeny yellow color. But that's not blue, so she had to be removed from the neighboring tank. I'm going to jump ahead here and mention that unfortunately this shrimp was also lost later on during the time it took to make this video. As of this time, though, the other shrimps seem to be doing very well. Again, I'm going to mention that most of this update is waiting. Watching plants grow in real time doesn't make for the best content. Does it? Yeah. Either way, the plants have been doing very well overall. Roots are reaching out from the epiphytic plants, and new leaf growth can be seen on both the Anubias and the Bucephalandra. Even the sword that was basically dead is showing some new growth just starting to pop out. Something I didn't show was that I actually cut the stem plant trimmings in half and then replanted them into the sand to create more spots for new growth and to spread them out a little thicker. Every stem is showing healthy leaves and growing well. Around the 3-week mark, the floating plants started to explode with root growth, with some reaching all the way to the substrate, and slowly filling the water column. I decided that with the thicker floating plants, the little LED light just wasn't cutting it anymore, so I came up with this janky temporary setup with an LED bulb and a reptile dome. Just before the 1-month mark, the tank got its first real clean. I carefully vacuumed the brown stuff off the bottom, watching I don't accidentally suck up too many fry. I also cleaned off the front glass, only the front, just to make it a little easier to see the inside. The side and rear glass were left as is with algae and microorganisms both growing. The fry have eaten the majority of the microfauna I had shown in the beginning of the video, and a couple have tripled in size. I have supplemented other crushed up dry food and hard-boiled egg yolk to continue feeding the fry, and will be starting live baby brine shrimp soon. There is a huge number of fry in here. Far too many to count. They are everywhere, from the water surface to the plants, all the way down to exploring the substrate. I question if I've made a mistake adding this many eggs into my experiment, but we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. Now at the 1-month mark, everything seems to be mostly settled in. Everything is cycling very quickly thanks to the natural materials and letting nature be nature. The gourami fry aren't going to be the permanent inhabitants for this tank. However, I want to wait until the plants grow in even more before adding in the fish that will call this setup home. I still haven't decided what would be a good fit though. So if you have suggestions of a nano fish that you really like, please leave it down in the comments below so I can do some research. I'm going to continue to watch as everything continues to grow and will record any other changes. But for now, that's going to be it for this update. If you'd like to follow along with the progress, why not subscribe? But until the next one, thanks for watching.